Hi, my artsy folks. My name is Elina. I'm a musician, a photographer, a researcher, an organizer of artistic events, and this blog is about everything behind the scenes for artists. Today, we will talk budget. We will talk about how to categorize, build, and structure a budget for your project when you are contacting foundations, applying for grants, and managing your own finances that concern the project you're working on. So first of all, if you're working on a grant application, if you have a deadline, I already mentioned in the previous video that it's very, very important to have an early deadline set for yourself that you're not going to postpone. So sit down in the morning. It's very important that you double, triple check your budget in the morning. I don't care when you write the draft, but you have to finalize your budget in the morning with a fresh mind, especially if you're new to this. So have at least half a day dedicated to that, especially if you have no budget template yet. Your mind has to be fresh and clear. First of all, you have two basic categories. You have your income, you have your expenses. Indicate both. Check the rates of services in your location. How much approximately is the rental of a venue, of the equipment you need, transportation, whether you're going to use public transportation or maybe you need to transport certain things by taking a taxi. Maybe if you have a car, how much would you spend on gas? Things like this. If you need to rent an instrument, for example, if you need to rent a piano and tune it, how much would the piano tuning cost? If you need a projector, how much would the projector cost? If you need decorations, if you need costumes, if you need materials, everything that you need, you have to include in your budget list. Whether you're purchasing items or you're renting items, this is very important to research in advance all the prices, at least roughly, that you will know that this costs that amount, roughly speaking. Now we will move on to some separate categories of your expenses. So let's talk artist payment. There are two ways of tackling this subject. The first approach is hourly rate, which is good and bad. It might get complicated if you are doing something long-term and if you're not only directing but you also are co-creating, because sometimes there are some phone calls that are long. Sometimes there are rehearsals that are longer. Sometimes there are rehearsals that are cancelled. Sometimes maybe your collaborator is not going to feel well or you're not going to feel well and you cannot rehearse during that exact hour or during that exact day. Things might get really difficult if you're really trying to count everything hourly. Plus, it might get so expensive that no budget will be enough for that. A side note. The second approach is a flat rate. I always use a flat rate when I have a chance to do so, and I honestly prefer when I'm collaborating with someone, it's also on a flat rate basis, because then it encourages both parties to work with the goal of reaching a certain result, artistic result. When it's hourly, then it becomes too mathematical. It's my personal feeling, but I think you know what I mean here. So you will need to include the number of performances, the number of the artists. If there are several key artists who are getting the same amount, then please do make sure that, for example, you have 2 artists times 3 performances times the amount that they are going to get paid, you included, if you are in that group. And then write out the final result as one of your expenses. Make sure that you include the description, this basic math, in your description line in the middle. For the income, first write the estimate ticket revenue. And also do include the math. For example, you have 2 performances, you're expecting roughly this number of people. It doesn't have to be the exact number of people that's going to come to your event, but you have to have a clear idea of how many people realistically could show up. If you are just starting and you are not sure, I would suggest you write about 70%, 80% of the venue capacity. It's a good start. Write other foundations as confirmed if you have confirmations, or pending if you have applied to other foundations or are about to apply to other foundations. This is really important. Every foundation has to see that there are other foundations you're also expecting the aid from. Better to write at least 3 to 5. If you're only applying to one other foundation, write that one. But please don't stop searching for more foundations. You can even include that as a side note, that you will always be on the lookout for other income sources, for more foundations, more grant programs, things like that. It's important to remember that some grant applications have their own budget forms. Don't send them your budget form. It might be a little different in terms of the categories they want to see. They might organize everything differently, but you will have to process the data and readapt your own budget form so it fits their budget form. If there is a budget note section, make sure you do write your budget notes in there. You can write maybe a second option for your venue, or maybe you can say something that if we are not able to perform 5 times, we're going to perform 3 times, things like that, and indicate the new number, the new amount that you would have to pay for the rent if you rent that venue for a lesser amount of days, let's say. In case the foundation doesn't give you the ask amount you are asking, but they give you less. So that's a good thing to include. They have to see that you are considering several options, that you're flexible, and that you are looking for all the possible ways to present your project, even if you have less funding. There are some expenses that we don't think when we are preparing a project. We are really into our project. However, for example, we still have to pay for the website for the whole year, right? So we're working for the project to be performed on a certain date, but then we have to pay for the website when we have the new due date. Then we're like, oops, my project was matched to 0, and now I have to pay for the website and email or whatever other paid services you might be using for your team, organization, and you would have to pay that. That's out of pocket. So please make sure that you do include things like this in the admin technical categories. It's going to help you in the future, because if you're paying for your organization website, it's for your projects to run, to happen. So it's also the project expense in a way. And you have to keep that in the back of your head. Don't give everything out to 0, because then you might have some extra marketing expenses or maybe media expenses, things like this, and then you will have to pay with your own funds. Yes, do make sure that in your budget form, no matter if it's your personal form or it's a form that you are using for a certain grant application that that foundation provides, your expenses and the income, of course, it's the projected expense list and the projected income list, they have to match to 0. If you're asking for a certain amount because you have a certain amount of money to spend for your project, please do make sure that your income amount matches. Of course, it can be pending, but do indicate that you asked a certain foundation for that amount, and then you're expecting another amount from your ticket revenue, and then there is another amount, for example, if you have a private donor, things like that have to add up to exactly the amount that you have in your expense list at the end. So the totals for both should be the same. Otherwise, all of the foundations will ask you if there is a difference, if you have more of the expenses than the income, they will ask you how come they don't match, where are you going to find the leftover money you need. This is not good. It means that you just cannot use the calculator. If you cannot organize your preliminary budget in a way that it matches, you won't receive any funding. Of course, vice versa, if you have more as your income, then they will ask you, okay, so where's that money gonna go? So please Make sure that it matches to 0. This way you will avoid all these strange questions and doubts, and most likely the foundation will proceed in reviewing your application. This is the sample budget, and I'm going to walk you through each field that I have created as a sample. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. However, it might be a good guideline for you if you're doing your project budget for the first time. So the first category I wrote is expenses, and the second category is income. And each category can still be subdivided onto multiple other categories. However, we are going to cover it as a sample list in the easiest way, because I think if I start talking about various categories, it might just confuse you. So I wrote the amounts as XXX 00 because you will have to find out your own country, city rates for each service or rental, things like that. So the first one is the venue rent, and you have to provide the name of the venue and the amount per performance or day or the evening, then the number of performances, and then if you have a different rate for rehearsal, you need to provide that as well and include the total in your second column with the price. So everywhere, please be specific. Don't write just we need this venue and the price. It's not clear. They have to know, the foundations have to know that you have calculated everything. At least make an estimate. Maybe if you are awarded a lesser amount, you can subtract one day, one performance, or if you are having several rehearsal days, you can subtract a day. That's no problem. However, take more, first show more and estimate more. And then if you need a piano, maybe you need to rent a piano. If you don't need to rent a piano, maybe it's just tuning, if it's not included in the rental, which is very often the case. So this is the piano rental plus tuning, because sometimes there is a better rate if it's all together. If you're renting, they already provide you with tuning. The next line is equipment rental. If you need to rent something else, maybe it's a projector, maybe it's some object, something technical, maybe it's a computer. So you need to also specify the price per hour or per day, depends on what you're renting, and the number of the hours or days you will need here, and write your total in the second column. Then we have the artist fees. You have to also specify the fee. If you're doing a flat rate, as I already mentioned, this is easier. So, for example, you have a flat rate XXX times Y. This is the number of performances. So time it the number of the evenings or days the artist will be working. And if you have leading artists who are getting the same fee, for example, write this number. If every artist is getting a different fee, write it out on a new line, because sometimes you need to hire an artist for a short part of your project. You don't need this artist to be performing with you on stage, or maybe you don't need to be performing on stage for the length of the entire show. So you might want to specify this separately. For example, you can write partially occupied or something like this. Then we have travel expenses, and don't avoid this field. It's also necessary to cover the travel and also specify if there's a plane ticket, if there's a train or bus. Please do specify an estimate. Also, I would suggest that you write a little bit more, because if it's not enough, you can't fly, or one of your collaborators cannot fly, or somebody else cannot fly or take a train or bus. If you have to use local transportation, also please include a rough amount. For example, each of your team members will have to buy something like a daily unlimited local transportation card or ticket. Also count up the rough number of days for rehearsals and performances and include that if you can. Then the total will go here as always. Then you have the video recording and editing. If you need to write it separately, if your video or audio recording engineer will charge you separately for the performance and the editing, so please also include that. Specify everything, include the total in here. Same for the technician. You get the idea how it works. Ushers, fees. If you have more than one usher, specify the hourly rates, specify the number of hours. So it's all clear, so it'll make sense. When something is not clear, the foundations are going to have this not sure result. And if you're getting a not sure, most likely you're not getting funded. So then we have printing, we have flyers, posters, programs. You can write and estimate how much it's going to be for printing. Research your local printing offices to find out their pricing. It's online most of the time, or go there and check their price list. Organization, this is the fun one. If you are the organizer, if you are creating your own event and promoting it and doing fundraising and administration, most likely you won't be paid as much as you deserve. Also, it's very nice to maybe specify that you have put a certain amount of hours into your project for free. So it's your in-kind donation. You can write the amount here in the description. And here in the second column, you can still say that you want so-and-so amount for your organization. But it's nice when the foundations see that you have input some hours, you have made an effort to also contribute to your own project. Of course, you're contributing to your own project anyway, since you're creating it. However, it's really great to show it, for example, that your organization would cost an XYZ amount and you only want a lesser amount, which you write here. And here in the description, you can write that you are investing a certain amount of hours, or you don't want the whole price and you are kind of giving it a discount in a way. I know it sounds funny, but still it's good. Or some people write, I used to do this as well. I used to write that my organization for my own projects would cost a certain amount, and then I would write it that I contributed it totally, fully here in the description, and then I would just write 0 in the second column, that I don't want any money from my organization. So my organization, my administration hours, they are as an input, as my own donation to this project that I'm happy to make. Then we go to marketing. So also specify the hour rates of your marketing assistant, director, and specify their names so it's clear who you're working with. Yeah, by the way, with artists, sorry, I'm jumping up here. I'm putting leading artists. I also mean names, just to make sure it's clear enough. Then if you have costumes, if you have any objects, props made specially for your show, also specify how much they cost, if it's a total or it's a rough price per object, and how many of those you need. So everything that can shortly be described, write it here. And again, the amount. Then if you're doing an internet promo, if you're doing a Facebook page, like promo, or a post or an event promo, or whatever paid promos, your YouTube trailer maybe, or an Instagram post campaign, something where you're going to invest your money in the internet, something that's going to be your internet investment for the ads. Write it here. You might want to specify it as well if you already know for sure how much you're going to pay to certain social networks, and again the total amount. Then we have the miscellaneous category. This is the last one usually. It's everything that doesn't fit into the categories above and everything that was not predicted For example, you need to take a taxi that wasn't planned. Maybe there is another expense. Maybe one of your cables broke and you cannot connect the projector to the computer and you need an extra cable, things like that. So something that cannot be predicted. If you have any other categories here, any other fields, also please include them in the list. I just, of course, cannot say in advance for each of you what things you might need. So this is for a performance, but if you're doing an exhibition, if you are a visual artist, you will have a different list of expenses, obviously. Most of them will be different. So include everything that's specific to what you are doing and change this, because this is just a sample. I just wanted to give you a basic description of how to write out a budget for a project you're making. But I work mostly in the performance, so I think it makes sense for me to make suggestions on performance projects. We have the total expenses. This is the very last field, the concluding one. It has to, of course, be the sum of everything you wrote in your second column. And please double, triple check, quadruple check. Again, don't send out your budget without the final calculation. Every time you send out your budget, do another run of all these numbers, because sometimes we change something quickly and then the last numbers are going to match. So it has to be the sum of everything, and never send out a budget without double checking this. Now, income. I gave you a sample of what you can have, which doesn't mean that this is the final version. So you can add more things. So the first one is usually the box office, your ticket revenue. So what do you have? Also, write the number of tickets you're planning to sell. I know it's hard to estimate, but please estimate, as I also said already, about maybe 70% or so of the venue size. So if the venue seats, if it's a sitting performance show, if the venue seats 100 people, maybe say you're gonna sell around 70. That's what your aim is. Of course, it's great if you were fully booked, but you never know. So the number of tickets you're planning to sell and the price. Sometimes there are two kinds of prices, so write an average price, then maybe don't worry about it. So if you have a certain price right here, and then times the number of performances, so we have XYZ values here for that. This is going to be your final amount. Now, if you already have a foundation helping you, write the name of the foundation, write confirmed. If you already got a confirmation, write the amount here. The next one is if you applied, for example, for a grant and you don't know if you are getting that funding or not. It can be this very grant you're applying to. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you the example. Same thing. You applied, you asked for a certain amount, you're waiting for it. Specify the amount here. It can, of course, be that the grant is confirmed and the foundation is pending. You get the idea. It's just an example of how things can be written out in the budget form. Now, private donation. If it's somebody who gave you a certain amount of money and they said, I want to help your project, this is a private aid you get. And it's already confirmed, they already promised you this money or they gave this money to you, you can name them and name the amount here. Or if your donor is somebody who didn't want their name to be on the form, you might kindly ask them if that's okay, or they are against it. If they don't want their name to be there, please don't put it. You can write something like the donor preferred to remain anonymous. Again, this is a private donation. This is not coming from a foundation. So even if you know the person who is running the foundation and they are giving you the foundation money, if it's an official foundation, don't write a private donation. Write it here. Write the name of the foundation. If it's someone you know, if it's your friend, your relative, your parents, somebody who loves your art and wants to help, if it's a private money coming out of somebody's pocket, please write it here. The next we have in-kind donation. This is something that is not money. I mean, non-monetary, right? So it can be an object or a service provided for free to your project. For example, you have a friend who tells you, I can tune the piano for free or maybe for a discount. Or your parents will give you a ride if they have a car and they want to drive you and your team to your venue. Something like that. So it's something that you would need to pay for, but you get this service or an object. Maybe somebody will tell you, I will give you a projector. If you need a projector, I will give it to you for free for your evening. Or maybe it's someone who can lend you costumes if you need costumes for free, or frames if you are exhibiting and you need frames for your paintings or photographs and you don't have them. Maybe the gallery can also lend you frames and you can write it in your in-kind donation. So things like that. Now, the total income, you write the amount. And now, the fun part is that this number, the total income, and this number, your total expenses, they need to match. And this is up to you how you do the math here and here. Well, the math has to be correct, but how you distribute the funds. So each foundation has to see that you are able to carry out this project successfully. What do I mean? Is that you estimated, you planned your expenses to match your income. So, for example, if you are applying to this, for example, you're applying to this grant. If you're applying and you are asking for more money than to match what's here, then they will ask you this and this. The income and expense totals don't match. And you are asking for more money. Don't ask for the money that's not written in your expenses, because they will have questions. Where is that money going to go? The leftover money. Is it going to just sit in your pocket? This is not cool. So always make sure you match. Add another expense. Add another service that would be great to have, or maybe write out some price. Make it bigger. If, once again, it's vice versa, if this number is bigger than this number, again, this is not cool. It means you're a bad organizer. It just means that you are going in debt. You're not going to pay yourself, or you're not going to pay one of your contributors well enough. It's something not specified. Once again, the foundations will not feel that you are reliable. So then, if your proposed income is smaller than your expected expenses, subtract something from the expenses, subtract something maybe from the internet promo, or subtract something from, I don't know, the artist fees. Sometimes it's very sad, but we need to, because we can't really subtract from the travel expenses, right? If you don't pay for your flight, you don't fly. So subtract something that is more or less flexible. Like the venue rental is probably not a good idea to subtract from, because you won't be able to talk to the hall and ask them for a lower price if their hourly or daily price is already a certain fixed amount. Think of what you can subtract. Maybe if you are working with 2 ushers, maybe you could figure it out working with only 1. Maybe you could print less flyers. So think of what can be subtracted. So I hope this example is clear enough. I'm not using an Excel form. As you noticed, you can use the numbers if you're working on a Mac, or an Excel if you were on PC, or some other number program that counts everything for you. It's great. Still double, triple check, calculate again. But I wanted to give you an example that it's possible, it's easy to also write out your budget without using any specific software. It's not necessary. You can still manage. I hope it was clear enough. This sample budget will be available to download. I will include the link in the description of this video. I hope this video was helpful. Please comment if there is anything else that you would like to know about writing the budget for grant applications. Please let me know if there is anything that you could add, perhaps, and please like this video if this information was useful to you. Please subscribe, hit the bell button. I will see you in the new video. In the meantime, have a great week. Bye.